Hello there. This is Rom Wills, and I'm back at you again with yet another video. Today, I'm going to talk about the swirling game. Yeah, that's been a big topic on, YouTube and all of that. The swirling sisterhood and these sisters with these videos, putting down the brothers and talking about why they have to go get them a white man. And I'm gonna be honest, it's just a lot of bullshit, and I'm gonna get into it, right? But not the way y'all think I am. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna tell you not to swirl, but I'm just gonna tell you the real deal. Cause let me be clear about some things before I get too deep into it. I got zero issue with interracial relationships. I got zero issue overall with a sister getting with a white man. Because in my view, there are two type of relationships. Well, let me take that back. I think there's something wrong with one type of sister that gets with a white man, and I'll get into that. But generally, there's two types of interracial relationships, particularly involving black women and white men. And really, it's the same dynamic with black men and white women or whoever. And one's a positive and one I feel is a negative. The positive is sometimes people just meet. They just gonna click. They could be different religions, races, whatever, national. I don't care what it is. They just gonna click. They just gonna have their personality's gonna click. You can't do anything about that. And it is what it is. And in this life, if you find the right person who gets you, that is cool. That's a beautiful thing. And sometimes that person is not always your race, your social class, whatever. That's cool. I don't have a zero problem with that. I know several sisters who are with white men, but they still cool. See, the difference is when somebody just meets somebody they click, they don't have to put down the men of their racial group or religious group or whatever. They just found somebody outside of that they click with, and that's it. And in the story. Now the other type though is women who specifically say they just gonna get with a white man, and they feel like, well, brother's doing this and they got all this going on and they so bad, so I'm gonna get me a white man. First of all, that's some bullshit. Because okay, first of all, the women saying that are primarily African American women, primarily, right? And they come up with all this dumb shit about why the brother's doing this or doing that. And this is why I say it's some bullshit. If they primarily dealing with African American men and they having issues, last time I looked, there were plenty of men from the continent of Africa. There are black men from the Caribbean. There are black men in South America. And what's wrong with them? They here. These guys got jobs. Shoot. And sisters know they love some African brothers because Idris Elba and Boris Kujo are African brothers. So, what's the deal? So, when they say stuff like that, I'm like, well, get you a black man from another country if that's what you really want. But here's the issue, though. Here's the real issue, and I'm going to break down. There's one simple reason why a certain group of black women swirl. This is specifically the swirlers. Not all black women who go out interracially are swirlers. Some, like I said, some just meet a good guy and they click with the guy. Good human beings, and that's cool. They'll be cool with it. No, they get with them for one thing. They just attracted to those men. That's it. Everything else is a rationalization. Every single thing. They try to put the brothers down and whatever and say the brothers did this. No, it ain't. They just want that white man, and they don't have enough ovaries just to say, you know what, I'm just attracted to those white men. And just say that, because they're afraid somebody going to call them self-hated, self-hating, self-hating or whatever, and try to do all this psychological shit. You know what? People like who they like. That's it. You know, whatever reason they like that person don't have anything to do with it. That's what they like. And I've met some sisters like that, and and they can come up with all those reasons. I said, look, you just attracted to that guy. You like that dude's hair, eyes, body build, voice, whatever. And just say it and keep going. And that's all it is. It's just a rationalization. But here's the problem in that, right? Here's the problem with it. And it's not so much that they're going for the guys. And it's not even a problem overall for the black community or anything. The issue is these women are getting played. They are having the problems. It's not the dudes, or no matter what the brothers are saying, these women are straight getting played. They are getting played. See, understand one thing. At the end of the day, these white men are still men. And black women have to ask these black women who want to sing the virtues and be like, oh, swirl, and this white man will do this, that, and the third, and all of that. I want them to ask themselves one question, and somebody can get in my comments and answer it for me. If these white men are so great, why so many white women complaining? I'm going to say that again. Why are so many white women complaining? Why are so many white women actively going for men of other races? And I'm saying actively to the point where they will, if they got to like walk away from their families, they're going to do it. If they got to get shunned, they're going to catch some hell from people, looks, they going to do it and been doing it. There's still plenty, even in this day and age, there's some white women who will go for a brother or go for a Latino man or, Asian man or something and still catch hell from their community. So what's going on that these women would go away from these men, right? And understand something. Understand something else. I'll leave that question out there, but understand something. As I said, they still men. And over the years, I'm saying going back to 1979, I've interacted with white men who have dealt with black women. The ones who really feel black women, who truly feel black women, who trying to marry them and cherish them and all that, are always those who would be labeled as wiggers. Let's just be real. They just grew up around some black people, and those are the ones who truly, deep down, want the sisters. So for all intents and purposes, they blue-eyed soul brothers. But the rest, there's a whole bunch of them. It's usually two things. It's some white men who can't get a white woman or the ideal white woman. Understand? Most of these dudes still want a white woman. You'd be hard pressed. Even among the blue-eyed soul brothers, you'd be hard pressed to find a white man who doesn't want a white woman. And I ain't talking about any white woman either. I'm talking about that slim, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman, that ideal figure. That ideal woman. You'd be hard pressed to find a white man, even when they deal with sisters who don't want that. So you got that on one hand, but on the other hand, and this is what I'm want to really get into. You got some white men; they are straight players, and they know it because I've been dealing with these type of men since 1979. That's when I first went to a high school, and for the first time, believe it or not, I really realized blacks weren't the majority in this country. No joke. That was the first time I've been around that many whites. And, you start talking with them and you're like, wait a minute, they just like us. And, these sisters come up and they'll think, well, these black men so bad, but the white men ain't that bad. And as soon as they say that, I already know they ain't dealt with a lot of them intimately. A lot of them fantasizing. Because like I said, they still men. And as men, we understand each other. I understand it. Like, I understand something with men, and a lot of women don't get this. A lot of times they think they're getting a better deal with some guys, and they're really not. The only difference between maybe a black man who's a player and a white man who's playing that game is the white man going to just really be a bit more discreet. He ain't gonna let you know how he running that game. He gonna be quiet. He ain't gonna be showy about it. Brothers might be. That's one criticism I have. To me, brothers might be like tattletelling too much. But some white man on that game, he's he's really doing it. And see, understand something. Understand, and some sisters they might say, "Oh, you just saying that." You just say, "No." Men understand each other. Understand when we deal with each other, we dealing with each other on a level that a woman is just not going to get. Understand? Say there's a sister, a swirling sister or something, or interested in swirling. She's at a place where she's listening to a black man who might be interested in her and a white man, right? Guaranteed there are three conversations going on, even though they could be just talking about the weather. And this conversation ain't even, the woman is just on the periphery of this conversation. It don't matter what she adds to it. Understand, when men talk and there's a woman present, and especially an attractive woman present, there's going to be what we're saying on the surface. That's the surface conversation. It's going to be what women actually hear out of that surface conversation, which usually stuff that she can relate to or whatever. And it might not be quite the same as what the men are actually talking about on the surface. And then below all that is what men actually mean, just some shit going back and forth between men. I mean, they could be talking about the weather on the surface, and the woman, she's hearing all of that. But then below the surface, these two like saying some stuff and doing some little slick shit where they saying, yeah, well, I'm about to bust a move on this woman, and the other one saying, yeah, I'm about to bust that same move. May the better man win. See, understand that. Understand that. See, understand one thing about the swirling game, and I call it the swirling game because you get all these women and they think, oh, I'm gonna get this white guy and he's gonna do this great thing for me and he's gonna be so romantic and he's gonna give me this and all of that. Please, these men, these white men are still watching. They watching these same videos. They listening to these same videos. They seeing the complaints and they thinking about how they gonna get that pussy. Cause like I said, I've been dealing with them since 1979. Whenever one gets comfortable enough around you, comfortable, and other brothers can attest to this. They get comfortable enough, they'll say, "Yeah, I'm checking out some black women." They might say it they kind of like might test you a bit, see if you get offended or anything. If you don't show any outward signs of offended, they say, "Yeah, I want to fuck her. Yeah, I want to eat that pussy." Something. They gonna say something, and just to test it. But see, think about how they talking. They are not talking about as the players. I mean, there's a great many of them who deal with sisters. The players, they ain't gonna be like, oh, I cherish her and I want to marry her and just be a good father to our kids. No, they talking straight pussy. They just like brothers talking on the corner. They gonna talk to. They get nice and comfortable. And women walking right into that game and don't even know it. And see, here's the thing too: that swirling game is not anything new. That swirling game isn't anything new. That thing goes back at least to the early part of the century, probably 19th century rather. That shit ain't some shit that came up when YouTube came up, man. Please, that shit go back to the early part of the century. I'm gonna tell you a story. It's something that burns my craw, and I'm gonna just let you know now. If some sister get in my comment box and say something or try to dispute this, I would tear a hole in her head. I'm just gonna tell you that shit straight up now. But I found out from my grandmother that my great grandparents, her husband's, my grandfather's parents, came up here because, well, my great grandfather had to get away from the Klan. And the reason he had to get away from the Klan was because he got into some stuff with my great grandmother, and she threatened to call the Klan on him. Back in the day, and it probably still happens to some extent, and especially in the South, and I got something else about the South too, but especially in the South, if a black woman had problems with her man, she would call the police, she would call the Klan. And the reason she could do that, a lot of black women back in the day were mistresses to Klansmen. Straight up. They were mistresses. So that shit was deeper. They wasn't no damn rape. They were straight up mistresses. And I've heard from other people who got relatives from the South, they said the same thing. In fact, I've talked to some elders, just to be clear, elder black women. And for sisters who want to get in my comment and talk some shit, these older sisters were no joke, and they the type, if you try to get in their face and argue, they will slit your throats. They don't play. The older sisters didn't play. They wouldn't even play with y'all young bitches. So, look. Here's the thing. That swirling game goes back. In fact, another thing I was going to mention about the South. Another thing. And if I sound angry for all this, that's because like I said, this shit was personal. This shit was personal because this was in my bloodline. But, and you can talk to anybody who had elders from the South. It might still be going on, to be honest. A white man was not considered a man until he had sex with a black woman. Think about that. There was a movie that came out, the one that Halle Berry won an Academy Award for, Monsters Ball. And there was a scene, she had sex with that racist prison guard. And there was a scene she went over dude's house and his father was there. And I remember watching the movie. It's like, oh, damn, her father just hate black people. He saw her and was smiling. And then he said it. He said what had been whispered in the South, what was known by people from the South for years. A white man, he said a white man wasn't considered a man till he had sex with a black woman. Now, do these sound like men who are cherishing black women? Who going to treat a black woman better than a black man would? No, these dudes were on some straight player shit. They weren't thinking about their well-being. They were thinking about busting a nut. They were thinking about busting a nut. And see, the swirling game, it don't really hurt the brothers, to be honest with you. But it's hurting these women. Because I'm going to tell you something now. What I know about it ain't just coming from my elders, but I know a lot of sisters who've been with white men. And they will tell you the same thing. They would tell you the same thing. In fact, a whole lot of them are hardcore pro-black nationalists now. And the reason why, they can't stand a white man now because they found out what a white woman could have told them if they just talked to them for a few minutes. It was like, these men are still men. And it's a straight game. It's like, y'all got some of these swirlers out here on YouTube and writing books and stuff, and they leading you right into the lion's den. And like I said, it's not the same thing as if you just meet somebody. And the problem is because you're looking at that surface characteristic, their skin, and not their character. That's where the problem comes in. That's where the problem come in. So it's like, boom. It's like it's a straight game. It's like the women, y'all lying to yourselves. And then when some women try to tell y'all call them mammies or something. And it's like they trying to tell you what's up. And then, of course, y'all don't want to listen to the men, but we going to know what the men are. Because like I said, there's stuff we going to say on the surface, but then there's going to be some stuff understood by men. And then, like I said, something to consider. If these men were so great, why are the women complaining? Why are they women complaining? You know what is funny? I'll leave y'all with this little story. It's about my book. People familiar with me enough know I have a book, Nice Guys and Players, Becoming the Man Women Want. But the original title of the book and the original printing was Nice Guys and Players Becoming a Man Black Women Want. It was specifically for the black community. And I remember I put out a small run of it, right, just to kind of test the waters. And it was vetted by older black women. Older black women, the type old school black women who wouldn't hold their tongue. In fact, I had some stuff. They were trying to add stuff in there. They were like, yeah, you're on the right path. They were like, it's a good start. We got some other stuff to give you. And they weren't saying no sucker shit either. They were giving some real constructive shit. They was giving some advice along pimp lines and stuff. But that's neither here nor there. Now, I remember I had decided I was going, update the cover. The cover was kind of cheesy, so I was going to update the cover and stuff. And I didn't have anything to really change. And I remember I went to like a pool party, and it was with this brother. He lived in a house, mostly white roommates and stuff. And I went there, and I'm sitting there chilling, and it was all of a sudden I'm in a conversation with some white and Asian women, right? And we talk. What do you do? I said, yeah, I got this book coming out, and I wasn't shy about it. I said, yeah, Becoming a Man Black Women Want, and all of that. I had a 4-hour conversation with these white and Asian women. They were saying word for word with the same emotion what black women get on YouTube and say about our brothers now. See, understand something. A lot of this shit is hidden. A lot of this shit don't make the news, isn't it? Understand something. White women complaining about a shortage of men too. In the United States, is census figures like officially say that there's 2 million more black women than black men, at least who are U.S. citizens. But that same census say there's 7 million more white women than white men. So they complaining about it too. They just not as loud about that whole shortage thing. And there's a lot of stuff. I've talked to a lot of white women. They say a lot of stuff. And at that party, that opened my eyes to something. They were saying verbatim what sisters were saying. If I closed my eyes, I would think I was talking with a bunch of sisters. Like everything y'all seen on, and they were talking about deadbeats, all that. There's a lot of shit that you think would be reserved for brothers. After I had that conversation, that 4-hour conversation, I went home that night, even though I was tired, and started doing the edit, hard edit. That's why I even changed the title of it. It became, I deleted all black references. Most of the black references anyway. And actually it sold a lot in the white community. White communities all over the world, to be honest. Because it's the same thing. The men are on the same thing. And see, that game, the swirling game, women are playing themselves. They think they're getting a better deal, and the men know that, and they're going to give you what you want for a little bit. Until Barbie come in the picture. Until they get that woman they want. And because I've known some dudes, I've known plenty of white dudes who will mess with a sister. But then as soon as that, like, blonde haired, blue eyed, slim woman, petite woman, come in the picture, they drop her like a hot cake. And that's the game. That's the swirling game. Sisters are playing themselves. Now, I'm just letting you know. Because to be honest, I ain't going to ask y'all to change, but I'm just letting you know. I'm putting it out there. Because, see, here's the thing with me. I don't have any issues with sisters. I really don't. If you want to swirl, you want to do this. If you got problems with me, just stay out my way. But I'm a tough love brother. Because there's been plenty. I was raised by my grandmother. And I've had plenty of elder black women who would grab me up and help raise me up. And the thing is, they ain't raised me up to be a simp. They raised me up to be tough-minded and to speak my mind. And too many women need to stop getting caught up in men telling them what they want to hear. Because that's not doing you any good. And see, y'all getting played. If y'all complain about the brothers playing you, just because that dude has some white skin don't mean he ain't going to play you too. So, anyway, that's it. I didn't mean for this to be too long. In fact, I had to cut it down. But I had to talk about it. Because, you know what? I move with spirit. Cause see, a lot of times we don't talk about God and all of this, but you know what? Somebody need whatever I said. Somebody needed to hear it. So anyway, that's it for today. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.